Hello, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid. If you're wondering why I look a bit like Telly Savalas at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it is because it is freezing cold in Great Britain at the moment, and no one can afford to heat their homes because it costs a fortune. And that's why I'm wearing my coat. It's kind of minus something at the moment. So Merry fucking Christmas. So this is my Christmas sort of top 10 are the Carry On films. So obviously, I don't know how many viewers from other countries I have, but for the uninitiated, the Carry On films are a series of comedy films that span from 1958 to 1978. And there's a long break, and there's another disastrous one in '92. And they're a bit of a British institution. Their humour is basically British seaside postcard humour come to life. Have a lot of innuendo, a lot of satire, sexism, innuendo, double entendre, stuff like that. Obviously, if you watch them now, they would probably seem very dated, but these are enormously popular films in Britain, and we've all kind of people of a certain generation, including myself, have all kind of grown up on them to a certain extent. They all have returning kind of cast members playing different characters, but usually a typical type. And some of these people act as kind of legends in British comedy. The guys like Kenneth Williams, Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Joan Sims. These are names that are really well known in British culture. So the films start, basically they're just checking this, sorry. They're directed by Gerald Thomas, they're produced by Peter Rogers, and a guy called Talbot Rothwell takes over writing them from 1963, and that's like the dream team, really. These three guys basically, they're the auteurs of Carry On. You know, the Carry On films don't have a distinctive visual style, they're sort of flatly shot like a lot of comedies. But the material, the style of the way the characters are formed, comes from this holy trinity of these guys, and they made a lot of money. The cast members, unfortunately, weren't always paid well. Now, I just checked, and they typically got £5,000 a film once things were up and running really well, which is about 100 grand today, which isn't bad. But I don't know. Anyway, producers made a lot more money. Typically, the budgets of these films started out about £70,000. £80,000. This is back in 1958, and then as the 60s go on, they tend to settle around the £210,000 mark. And virtually every film is about just under 90 minutes long. So obviously the screenplay, you take the credit sequence out and the end credits, which you're probably writing 85 minutes of screen time. I forget, is it one page for a minute or two? I can't remember. So that's basically the sort of the kind of background to them. The actual films they're made. So they started off by satirising professions. 1958, Carry On Sergeant, was a military piss take. Carry On Nurse, Carry On Teacher, Carry On Constable. Then they did Carry On Regardless. These are all black and white. I think these are probably less popular now. I grew up on the colour ones, and the first colour one's Carry On Cruising. But these aren't as bawdy. And then there's Carry On Cabby, Carry On Jack. They really start to come of age, and this is one of the last black and white ones. Is Carry On Spying in 1964. So this satirises the James Bond films, and it's really on point. Obviously, Doctor No's come out in 62. 64's the year of Goldfinger. So they really start to come of age there. And then they're kind of a hot seat. It's Carry On Cleo, which is another famous one. We'll come to that. Carry On Cowboy, Carry On Screaming. And then you've got two weird ones, Don't Lose Your Head and Follow That Camel. Now, these are Carry On films, but they don't have the Carry On title. And one of them, Follow That Camel, has Phil Silvers in it. So I think that was an attempt to get to the American market by having Sergeant Bilko in it. So we tend to call those films Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head, Carry On, Follow That Camel. So they are Carry On films, but I should just say there's 31 Carry On films. Then you got Carry On Doctor, Carry On the Khyber, which we'll come to, Carry On the Jungle, Carry On Loving, Carry On Henry, by Henry VIII, Carry On Your Convenience, Carry On Matron, Carry On Abroad, which again 1972 kind of looks at like in the late 60s, early 70s cheap holidays abroad become available, and the working classes can start to fly on planes and go to places like Spain, like Torremolinos and so on. So again, they're kind of mirroring what their audience is doing and satirising it. Then you've got Carry On Girls, Carry On Dick, which is Dick Turpin, Carry On Behind. And then you get Carry On England, which is really in decline now. Let's just have a look. Yeah, 250 grand budget, 89 minutes. This was like, really was coming to the end of the carry-ons. Whenever you see clips of this film, it barely looks like a film. There's not a lot of the regulars in it. It's bad. And then there's That's a Carry On, which is compilation, and Carry On Emmanuel. So this was their attempt to, getting on the Emmanuel, Sylvia Kristel sex films, and it has a nude scene with the actor Kenneth Williams. Kenneth Williams is one of the legendary performers. We'll come to him, of the Carry On team. So this was a disaster, and then they tried to do a Carry On film in 1992, Carry On Columbus, and it just didn't work. By then the humour was just too dated, and they only managed to get 3 original cast members in. Sadly, a lot of the Carry On cast members died quite young, in their 50s and early 60s. Older ones not lasting much in their early 70s. And we'll come to some of these people. So I still think they could do a Carry On film. But the trick with Carry On films isn't to cast comedians, it's to cast comic actors who can do comedy. And, there's any number of subjects you could take the piss out, but it's just how you do it, how you make it a Carry On film now in the sort of political correctness era, or woke era as people call it, which is a word I don't like. It's difficult to do Carry On humour. It has got dated humour, but anyway, so basically you have stock cast members. Let me just have a look here. Sorry, I've as usual, I've lost my... There a list of Carry On film members. Sorry, I'm just looking at Wikipedia here. So Kenneth Williams is in 25 films. He's a Carry On legend. Probably the second, most well-known Carry On member. Kenneth Williams is a great sort of satirical comic. Did radio shows, things like that. Tends to play the sort of the middle class, slightly pompous person. Very funny. You got Joan Sims. She'd been 24. She was typically the sort of female lead, often married to one of the key characters. Very funny. Charles Hawtrey, one of the great enigmas of these films. Hawtrey's a really strange character in real life and plays quite strange characters on screen. If I was to describe his characters, they're queer, and I don't mean that in a gay slang sense. I mean, in olden times when people say, "Oh, how queer about something's a bit strange," that to me is what Hawtrey's like. And he's actually had a really bad drink problem. It was quite difficult later on, and he was openly gay, and he was really comfortable with that, unlike Kenneth Williams, who was closeted and struggled with that and had bad depression. But in the films, he tends to play sort of, I describe his characters as kind of asexual. He's kind of not interested in men or women. He's a bit camp, but quite an unusual character in the films. Then you look at your next one is Sid James. Sid James is probably the legend. When we talk about Carry On films, we always talk about Sid. Sid James always plays a character called Sid, unless he's playing some kind of historical character. He's actually South African born originally, but he plays a kind of Cockney wide boy spiv type character, and he's got an amazing laugh that goes so typically Sid gets a lot of great, a typical Sid line is his wife will come in and go something like, "I've been to the door shop and I found a lovely pair of knockers that I think would look great in the house," and Sid will go like, looking at her breast, will go, "There's not a bad pair of knockers here either." That is the typical level of Carry On films. And they have sort of sound effects where it goes whoop, whistles, and they are puerile in their seaside humour, but they're kind of they are what they are. Kenneth Connor, he often plays kind of pompous sort of council officials and so on. Peter Butterworth, actually one of my favourite actors in this. He's in 16 of them. Hattie Jakes, She's one of the legendary female leads. She was in a show called Sykes, actually, with an actor called Eric Sykes as well. Very, very famous comedian in Britain. Bernard Bressler, he typically plays Sid's mate, sidekick. Bernard Bressler's a big 6'7" guy. In actual fact, viewers may know him more from the film Crawl. He plays the Cyclops. He died young as well. He's only 59. But he's usually plays quite a dumb guy. But with Sid, they'll have like a mice and men dynamic. So Sid will be like scheming, you know, and he'll be like, "Oh, Sid," you know. And Sid will be like, "Ha ha," yeah. And then Jim Dale. So Jim Dale's like the romantic lead. You know, Jim Dale's actually had quite a successful career in America, playing Barnum, I think. Could be wrong. Jim Dale's actually born 1935, so he's in his 80s now. You just wouldn't think he's that old, but Jim Dale's in a Spaceman and King Arthur, the Disney film. He's in Digby, the Biggest Dog in the World. So he's a kind of younger, kind of sympathetic character he plays. He's in 11 films. He kind of brings a bit of, I don't know, a bit of youth, a bit of vigour into the films, and he really helps them in the 60s. So you've got Patsy Rowlands. She often plays the undervalued Mika Mouse's secretary or assistant. She goes through transformation and gets more, you know, balls in that. Jack Douglas, he's in later ones. He usually plays a kind of like mischievous kind of handyman type guy. And then Terry Scott, he's only in 7 of them. I thought he was in more, but Terry Scott was in a famous sitcom in Britain called Terry and June. Beloved character actor. And he's great fun. So often they have stupid names. I mean, just going in here, Don't Lose Your Head, which is about the French Revolution. We've got Citizen Camembert, you know, Duck D. Pomfret. Sid James plays Sir Rodney Effing / the Black Fingernail. I mean, this is a character played by Peter Bowen called Sears and B-Day. I mean, this is something to laugh about. You know, this is what I laugh about. Karen Hunt, Professor Ronald Crump. That's the one character there. There's Dr. Nookie in one of the, I think it's Carry On Again, Doctor. What else have we got? Yeah, they get kind of more lewd as the 1960s, as the sexual revolution becomes more prevalent. Like the Hammer films, they start to be more risque, really. And there's quite a good comparison with the Hammer films. You know, this is a period where British cinema, there's British franchises, British made films that are popular at the British box office, and that's enough to sort of have a big, you know, series of films. Yeah, so that's a kind of you know, level here. So let's you know, I think I've kind of covered it there. I mean, they're always the same length. I mean, I'm just going to click on Carry On Dick randomly. 91 minutes, 245 grand budget. You know, these films, it's 200 to 250 grand. When Columbus came out, $2.5 million budget, 91 minutes. So, yeah. Okay, so let's try and go through these. I must confess, I haven't seen a lot of these for a long time. I tended to watch them at Christmas. They're often on at night time on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Boxing Day. You know, you're still up. It's about 11, 12 o'clock. You go one of the 3 or 4 channels back then. There'll be a Carry On, or they'll be on in the afternoon. Now they'll end up on like one of the, you know, there's more channels now. They're going to get put on that. But they're just, you know, there's a sort of thing you can put on, and it doesn't matter if you're like 30 minutes in, you just start laughing if your humour's that way inclined, and you've been grown up on these. Okay, so my 10th position one I'm going for is from 1975, it's Carry On Behind. So this is a really late one. I've always liked this. Basically, sat on a campsite, it's another camping one. It's really bawdy, and Kenneth Williams and Elka Summer, she of the, I think she's Shot in the Dark fame, are kind of excavating Roman ruins at this campsite. But this is only one to star Windsor Davies. Now, Windsor Davies is a great Welsh character actor who was in a British sitcom called 8.5 Hot Mum, which was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's dated now because it's you know, culturally it's seen as racist now, like a lot of British TV in the 70s. But, you know, we loved it at the time, and it didn't really, you know, mean harm. in what it was doing. It was just that show was kind of taking a piss out of World War II, the entertainment. What's the word I'm looking for? The entertainment troops, as it were, that have in the prisoner of war camps or bases. But anyway, Windsor Davies is. It's good to have him in this, and that's why I've always liked it. I always found it a lot of fun. So that's my number 10 choice. Not much happens. It's just daft. My number 9 choice, maybe this should be higher, but this is like, I think this one is one of the first like web carry-on classics, and it's Carry On Cleo. So this is basically about Cleopatra. Cleverly, they used some of the sets from the film Cleopatra. They must have got them cheap from the Elizabeth Taylor film. And this has got the classic line of Kenneth Williams. He plays Caesar. Infamy. They've all got it, infamy. Apparently, though, this line was nicked from another comedian called Jimmy Edwards, who said it on a radio show in something like 19... before that, I can't see what the date is. This is kind of fun. There's an actress in this called Amanda Barry. In actual fact, she ended up in a really famous British sitcom called, British soap opera called Coronation Street. I think this is the only Carry On she's been in. But anyway, it's another classic. Now, number 8, I'm going to go for Carry On Spying. Again, this is what I was telling you about before. This is basically a piss take of the James Bond films. Really well done. This has got an actor in as well called Bernard Cribbins. Bernard Cribbins is a very beloved British character actor who died recently in Great Britain. He was in a film called The Railway Children. He used to read stories on a show called Jack and Nora, later was in Doctor Who. He also voiced an animated stop-motion kids show called The Womble. So he's like a precious figure. So having Bernard in it is great. He's also in in a Doctor Who film as well. This is a lot of fun. They basically ape the James Bond films. The top secret criminal form has been stolen by Stench, the Society for Total Extinction of Non-Conforming Humans, obviously Pistago Spectre. And the Secret Service, and Kenneth Williams is kind of the in charge of things like. Very good. Then I'm going number 7. Again, this is another great piss take of Hammer, and it's Carry On Screaming. So this is a very famous one. I think this is one of the first colour ones to really make use of the colour. It's very funny. Quite an interesting cast. You've got an actress called Fenella Fielding in this, who's very good. And Harry H. Corbett stars in this. I don't think Harry H. Corbett did. I'm not sure if he did any other Carry On films. Again, Harry H. Corbett was a very well-known British character actor. He was in a famous British sitcom called Steptoe and Son. So it really benefits from having him in it. And Jim Dale appears in this. So this takes a rip out of Hammer films, Frankenstein and so on. This is probably one of them where it's really well done. They've really copied the aesthetic. Kind of like what Mel Brooks did with Young's Frankenstein. Obviously, he does it better because it's bigger budget, but it is really well done, and you find some great on-set photos from if you check it out. Next one I'm going for, number 6, is Bawdy. Not Carry On Doctor, it's the sequel, Carry On Again Doctor. So they did Carry On Doctor in 1967, Carry On Again Doctor. It's basically sort of similar plot, but it's just kind of more lewd, and Jim Dale's called Dr. Jimmy Nookie in it. There you go. So this is a lot of fun. It's probably one of them where you've got a lot of innuendo, and Kenneth Williams will say "ooh, matron," which is his stock line whenever he's in kind of some medical one. Tatty Jakes usually plays a matron, and he will say "ooh, matron." Sid James is in this as well. I should mention Sid James is in some of these I'm going through. Legend. Number 5, I'm going for Carry On Loving. So Sid is to the fore in this. This is from 1970. He runs a dating agency. Again, this isn't as well thought of, but I like this. You got Sid, Kenneth, Charles Hawtrey, John Sims, Hijacks, Terry Scott, Bernard Bressler. You got some heavy hitters in this. But it's a lot of fun, this. And I think Sid, there's a budgie car that tells him the horse racing results or predicts them, I think. And Sid puts bets on. He's Sid's, most kind of like wide boy, scheming. There's actually a character later on in British sitcom history called Del Boy from Only Fools, a sitcom called Only Fools and Horses, played by an actor called David Jason. And although he's not like Sid James, his sort of scheming is, I think, there's a trope there. One thing I should say, I didn't mention before about the Carol films is, like all British sitcoms, their strength or their obsession is the British class system, really. They take the piss out of institutions of class. They have characters in them who are sort of pompous and want to move up the class system. You have like working class characters that kind of staunchly working class and kind of take the piss out of the posher characters. Behind every sitcom in British history, the successful ones, that all look at working class culture and particularly middle class culture, wanting to move up the food chain to a certain extent. And obviously in Karen as well, they take the piss out of the empire, all sorts of things. So yeah, that's really why they're successful, because their audience would like that. They'd recognise themselves, taking the piss at the highs up, as it were. Next, number 4. I mean, this could be number 1. This is generally regarded by critics as the best one. The best Karen film is probably the one Karen film where critics actually go, this is really good. It's Karen at the Khyber. So this is a satire of the empire. It's set in the Khyber Pass, but it's like filmed in Buckinghamshire or something. It's very funny. Sid James plays Sir Sidney Rough Diamond. He's Queen Victoria's governor in India, province of Calabar near Khyber Pass, and he's defended by the 3rd Foot and Mouth Regiment. They wear kilts and don't wear anything under the kilts, and at the end they actually pull the kilts up and flash the enemy, and they all collapse and faint. It's very funny. Roy Castle's in this as well, which is a lovely addition. So Roy Castle, again, beloved British entertainer, played trumpet, did a show called The Record Breakers. So he was a real childhood figure for a lot of people my age. Sadly died young of lung cancer. Great trumpet player, and he was in kind of quite a few horror films and stuff like that. And he's in one of the Doctor Who films. I can't remember if it's the first or the second one from the 60s. So this, again, it's just a lot of fun. Bernard Breslau's very funny in this. Kenneth Williams, the Kazi of Calabar. Charles Hawksley, Private James Whittle, there you go. This is really good. Again, 88 minutes. 1968 comes out the kind of height of kind of flower power and that, which would probably fit in with it, satirising the empire. Number 3, I am going for Carry On Camping. This is probably one of the most well-known ones. This has a classic image. I haven't come to Barbara Windsor yet. So Barbara Windsor's the kind of sex symbol who joins later. Typically gets chased by Sid. Sid's character in this, her bra springs off and she covers her breasts. And this is often a clip that's shown when people talk about the kind of humour in Carry On films. They're doing exercises on the camp. This is really funny. At the end, a lot of hippies turn up. It's got a nudist. They go to see a film about a nudist camp, Sid and Bernard. But when they go to the camp, it's not like that. But the end, a lot of hippies turn up, and then Sid often escapes at the end of Carry On films, I should say. He's usually got an irate wife after him, or someone wanting money or something. And Skid manages to pose as a hippie, I can't remember if he puts a wig on, some glasses, but he wears a paisley shirt. I should say, actually, as well, Sid James Sally died in 1976 on stage at the Sunderland Empire, I think. So I live in Gateshead area over the water from Newcastle, and Sunderland's not far away. Sid James, fascinating figure in British culture. Says Carry On Camping. The next one I'm going for, and this is weird having this up here, but I just love this one, is Carry On Girls. So this is a piss take of kind of sexual politics. Obviously around, you've got the feminist movement in the early 70s. You've got the strikes, I forget, for equal pay by the women. There's a film about it. I forget which car plant it was. But basically, they're having a beauty contest at a seaside resort with councillors, and June Whitfield's character, or come at June Whitfield, runs a local women's liberation group, and they want to sabotage a beauty contest. So it's kind of looking at the sexual politics and stuff. It's very funny. June Whitfield appeared with Terry Scott in a sitcom called Terry and June. She was great, and then later on she was in another sitcom called Absolutely Fabulous, absolute legend. Brilliant comedic actress. So this is one of her few appearances. I don't know what other one she's in. But I really like this one. There's a hilarious bit where Peter Butterworth plays a character and he spies on girls with a telescope, and one of the girls is so, so attractive. He starts his spyglass thing starts smoking. This actually, I think, it's got Vara Leon in this, who's later in James Bond from the Hammer films, and she does that thing where she plays a kind of meek secretary who wears glasses, and she's married to Bernard Breslow's character, but then she takes her glasses off and enters the beauty contest, and looks like Vara Leon. It's funny, like I forget what happens at the end. That's it. Like, he speeds off on a motorbike at the end. Sid James is called Sid Fiddler. That's probably the best Sid name. And then Barbara Windsor is called Hope Springs. And real name's Muriel Bloggs, and they escape on a motorbike at the end. So it's brilliant. Okay, so let's just go back down my top 10. I've got 10, 1975, to Carry On Behind. 9, Clear, 1964. 8, Spy, 1964. 7, Screaming, 1966. 6, Karen Again, Doctor, 1969. 5, Loving, 1970. 4, 1968, The Khyber, Karen at the Khyber. 3, Camping, 1969, and 2, Girls, 1973. My number one choice is Carry On at Your Convenience from 1971. I love this one. This is a satire of industrial relations. Basically, there's a toilet company called W.C. Bog & Co. Yes, I know. Kenneth Cope's in this. He plays the local kind of agitator, union shop steward, who's, arguing for pay, better conditions, and pulls the guys who work at the factory out on strike. It's just really funny, that it's that time where industrial relations, there's been strikes in the late 60s, and there will be a lot through the 70s, and this will create fundamental change in Britain. It will lead, the industrial strikes will lead to the Labour government being voted out, and the Thatcher government coming in, and to change the whole economics of Britain. So this is really there at the start. Sid's great in this. What's his character called? W.C. Boggs, Kenneth Williams is in. You got Vic Spanner, that's what Kenneth Cope's called. Sid James is called Sid Plummer. But what's great on this one is they go on like a works trip at the end. They go to the seaside and they're all on the coach, and it's quite cool because back then, you would have works trips, and like factories tended to do a lot for their employees. They would have that patrician thing where you kind of take play of your employees more. So that's quite interesting to see that depicted. And at the end, Sid has a does he get chased by like on a go-kart or something? Or maybe I'm muddling up with another one. Maybe I'm muddling up with the motorbike ending. But I think there is a bit where Sid gets in a go-kart with Babs or something like that. No, maybe it's Joan Sims. Babs Windsor's not in it actually. So anyway, yeah, you see, I've said it's my favourite, but I haven't seen it for ages. But anyway, it's good. It's got Bill Maynard in it as well. Bill Maynard was in a top character actor. He's in a British sitcom called Soul and Frogget, and a show called The Gaffer. So some interesting people in this. Very funny. This is the one I really like the best. But like I say, someone watching them now, a younger person, would just be like, these are outdated, they're sexist, they're crude, they're this, they're that. It's like, it's if you've grown up on them, really. Yeah, those are my top 10 at Carry On films, and I've waffled on about Carry On films for like nearly 28 minutes. But anyway, yeah, they're often at Christmas, and this is my sort of Christmas-related bot brack. So all the best for Christmas and the New Year, and in 2023, I probably won't be doing stuff for a bit. I'm probably going to drop a few old things off my other channel and transport them over to the Bot Brack channel. And, I'll think of some new stuff to do. So see you again. Cheers, thanks.